What is up, YouTube? Today I wanted to talk about my experience with Path of Exile 2 at PAX West. Before I get into the details, just thought I'd kind of talk about myself and my experience with Path of Exile. I started playing in 2014, and I believe it was Ambush League. I played it here and there pretty casually, and it was like that for a couple of years. I would basically, you know, play a league and then take a break for a year, play a league, take a break for a year. And I kind of did that cycle up until Ultimatum in 3.14. And ever since then, I've been playing pretty seriously every league. I've logged over 1,000 hours on the game, so it's not, the most time played, but I think I've definitely spent many days and many nights playing PoE. PAX West was a 4-day event, but I personally only went one day. So I knew that the one day I went, I was going to have to try to play as much PoE2 as I could. So from the moment that we got to the venue, me and my friends just beelined it for the GGG booth down in the basement. And we got there, and there was quite a few people waiting in line. I'm sure some of you might have already seen the pictures that GGG uploaded from their Gamescom and PAX West booths. We got in line. We waited for about 25 minutes, I think, until we got to the computers. There were 21 computers, and I think everyone was given 25 minutes to play. So the line was moving pretty steadily. I got to my PC, and I guess the person before me had like really low DPI, so I panicked and spent time configuring with the settings and stuff, and I eventually got that up and running. The keybinds were, of course, kind of pre-made for you. So I spent like a couple minutes redoing my keybinds because I'm really picky about that stuff. But once I got that stuff out of the way, I finally decided to hop in. So the first character I played was the Huntress. And so the Huntress was, they put you in Act 2 with that character. And they basically just drop you in town. Again, I'm sure many of you have already seen the gameplay demos and what that looks like. But basically, they drop you into town with, you already have some gear. And I just ran out of the zone and started fighting mobs. And overall, I mean, my first impression was like the game looked great. The mobs seemed like the white mobs definitely put up a challenge. Obviously, I was learning like what all the skills are doing too, because they basically give you like, I think 6 or 7 skills right from the get-go. And so I was like reading like, what does this skill do? What does this skill do? So it was definitely a little overwhelming at first, kind of just being thrown straight in, knowing that you only had 25 minutes to, do whatever you could do. And for me, I was just trying to do as much content as I could. So I was kind of I ended up just focusing on only using like 3 or 4 main skills. Overall, the skills meshed together pretty well. I think they were all pretty much brand new skills to PoE, except for this puncture, which acted the same way it does in PoE 1. I actually ended up unbinding the puncture just because I didn't feel like it was too useful for me. The character is level 18. It has kind of Herald of Thunder already on as well. And for my main combo, I was basically just kind of putting down my little whirlwind and then just, jabbing mobs and running out of the whirlwind and letting it explode. And that was doing like enough damage to clear most packs. You also have this like long range kind of lightning spear. Kind of behaved similar to lightning arrow with just a lot slower cast speed. But overall, I mean, it felt good. I was navigating through the mobs pretty well, kind of just following the objective that the quest was giving me. You start with 3 life flasks and 2 mana flasks, and I found that the Huntress did feel pretty mana starved. I was definitely popping my mana pots a good amount. That being said, though, they give you 2 pots, and it seems like that was enough. There's no utility flask, so I don't know. It felt pretty balanced. I know in PoE 2 they're trying to move away from utility flask, so again, for the purposes of the campaign, life and mana flasks, they felt fine. But yeah, definitely using my mana flask a lot. I eventually made it to the first boss, And, you know, it was pretty clear that it was a boss. It was this big guy. He had a nice big health bar. And you can immediately tell that the kind of the atmosphere of the zone that you're in changes. It feels pretty epic. You know, you definitely feel like you're fighting a boss. And so the boss seemed pretty well designed from what I could tell. It wasn't anything crazy, but the attacks were well telegraphed. Everything seemed like it made sense as far as, you know, thematics, but also mechanics. There was one part where there were several phases where the boss would spawn a bunch of hyenas, and I thought, oh my god, I'm definitely gonna die. There were a lot of hyenas, but I actually never ended up dying throughout my entire run with the hunter. So I was kind of surprised that I was able to just show up and not die on my first playthrough for the entire 25-minute session. So that was pretty cool. Again, I was just trying to do as much content as I possibly could. And so I went on to the next zone, kind of the same thing. I followed an NPC. He was kind of fighting with us, you know, just clearing white mobs, using combos. Everything felt very purposeful. Like, it definitely is not the PoE1 method of just, you know, using one ability over and over and over again. I was definitely cycling through 3 or 4 main skills just to even get through white packs. So it was a lot of thinking on that side of things, but I think overall that's something that I could definitely see myself getting used to over time, and it definitely felt pretty fun. I did level up throughout my run, but I noticed that I wasn't able to do anything with it. I tried pressing P to open the passive tree, and it was locked away, so unfortunately I could not, you know, get any look at the passive tree. Eventually I made it to the second boss, and kind of the same thing. The mechanics, abilities, they all pretty well telegraphed. I don't know if these bosses are supposed to be relatively easy or hard at this point in the game. I mean, it's only Act 2. But again, I was able to kill it without dying pretty comfortably, I'll say. And same will go, I actually, beyond that point, I made it to a third boss. And this boss definitely was a cut above the first 2 bosses as far as strength, health, mechanics, that kind of stuff. Definitely more engaging than the first 2. But again, overall, it was a very, very fun experience getting to fight these bosses. For the third boss, once you get him down to, I think, 25% HP, he kind of runs away and you have to like chase him. And right after I started chasing him, my 25 minutes were up. One of the GGG people came over and said, "Oh, you made it pretty far." So I was feeling pretty good about that. I guess I don't know if other people had made it that far or not, but probably because I just never died. But yeah, overall, my takes on the Huntress, it was fun. It felt great. It wasn't as squishy as I thought it would. And again, maybe it's because I had 3 life flasks, so I was able to kind of always, you know, cycle through the flasks. But I mean, flask sustain is not the same as it is in PoE1. It's definitely, you know, you don't get flash charges from killing white mobs, and so it's a conscious effort to, you know, use your flasks. But 3 life flasks made it pretty comfortable. So yeah, the Huntress, it was a great time, great experience. Act 2 seemed cool as well. After I finished my playthrough of Act 2, I actually had the chance to talk to Chris Wilson of Grindinger Games and Jonathan as well. They were just kind of sitting at a desk in the little, you know, booth area. And overall, I mean, the traffic was to talk to Chris was like very small. There was basically like not a line at all. So again, I wasn't sure if I was surprised about that or not. You could definitely tell that in the line for PoE2 that some of the people were, you know, experienced grizzled veterans, and some people were probably first timers who might have just heard about it at the venue itself for the first time. So it kind of makes sense that, you know, not everyone is dying to talk to Chris. But I don't know, for me, I was super excited. And so, yeah, me and my friends just, you know, talked to Chris for a couple minutes. I thought like I'd want to just small talk. I didn't want to really bother about bother him about the game itself. I'm sure he's heard a million trillion things about the game. And overall, that interaction was very, very pleasant. One thing that was kind of funny, I asked Chris, like, hey, like, I was thirsty. So I was like, do you know where the water fountains are? And he kind of just like looked at me for a second. And then he just said, follow me. And he turned around and like bolted off. So I was like, where the hell is Chris taking me? And he basically just took us to this like closet room, like behind their little stage. And he gave me and my friends water bottles. So that was pretty cool. I actually still have the water bottle here. So shout out Chris for keeping me hydrated during my PoE2 session. That was an awesome bonus. After we talked to the GGG employees, we took a short break and kind of just explored the rest of the venue at PAX West. But then we quickly realized that, hey, like, we're here for PoE2. Let's just, get back to it. So we got back in line again at the GGG booth, and this time it took about an hour for us to get back to the computers. The line had grown considerably, but we waited patiently. We were watching other people play, so that was kind of entertaining, just kind of peeking over their shoulders as they played. For my second playthrough, I decided at first I thought I'm gonna play the sorceress, which was, I believe, Act 3. Kind of similar to Act 2, it kind of just drops you in town and you go straight to the zone and start fighting mobs. I got destroyed playing the sorceress. I don't know what happened. I went deathless on the huntress. I was feeling pretty good about my relative skill at the game, and I got destroyed basically on like the first or second like white pack of mobs playing the sorceress. And so again, part of it's just they give you like 6 or 7 skills. You got to learn what everyone does, right? Getting used to the keybinds and all that, of course. But I tried like 3 or 4 times and I couldn't make it past like 10 packs without dying. So I think just there was some brain block going on in my mind. But overall, I mean, the sorceress definitely felt pretty squishy. And again, that was Act 3, so I don't know if the characters were relatively undertuned compared to the mobs or not. I know a lot of people were saying that at ExileCon that the characters were severely undertuned. I don't think it was quite as bad as it was at ExileCon, but yeah, my character felt pretty squishy. The cast times for the abilities for the sorceress felt pretty long. I think that was maybe my biggest complaint, is that even like the Frost Nova skill that freezes everyone around you, it kind of took a while for it to activate, and I found myself getting animation canceled or sunlocked as a result of trying to cast some of those longer time spells. So again, maybe I was just doing something wrong, but I actually ended up moving to a different character after like 5 minutes because I was kind of just fed up with the sorceress. And so I switched to the druid, which was the Act 4 character, or one of the Act 4 characters. And overall, the druid did feel quite a bit better to play. Same thing, there were like 7 abilities that I had to kind of learn what each one did. And of course, the druid has the added mechanic of kind of shape-shifting back and forth between the human and the bear, at least the bear in this demo. And so getting used to, just navigating the 2 forms like in and of itself was a challenge. But overall, I found my rhythm. I realized like when I wanted to be human, basically as a human, I would kind of set myself up. I would cast like the lightning storm and volcanoes that would kind of like linger over time. And then I would transform into a bear and kind of, do cool bear stuff and maul the white mobs, and then kind of rampage around and trigger the volcano to shoot more. I think that's a really cool interaction, and it seemed pretty effective too. One thing that was a bit tricky at first is that the default key binding for the druid on the left click was basically the bear maul. And the way it works is basically like you have to build up rage in order to transform into the bear. And having the left click on the maul would basically mean that like you would automatically transform if you like left click onto a mob within melee range. And so that felt a little weird. But my friend talked to Octavian actually after our session, and basically he said that the reason for putting the maul like on the left click is that it's catering towards like non-PoE players, right? I know a lot of us who play PoE 1 are accustomed to having our left click just be like the walking movement, or like not like a main skill. But to non-PoE players, that's kind of not the norm, right? So it makes sense that they wanted to put like kind of like a melee attack on the left click. It's just unfortunate that in my opinion, the transformations felt a little clunky. And again, this could just be a skill issue. Maybe I just wasn't playing the bear right. But one thing else while I'm talking about Octavian actually is he mentioned that overall, I think he believes once PoE 2 actually comes out that there will be less kind of main skills in the game. I know again in the demos they give you like 7 skills and you're like trying to figure out like which one's the best, like how they all work together. It sounds like he was of the opinion that once the game actually comes out that'll get cut down a little. Obviously not to the point of PoE 1 where it's just kind of one main ability, but sounds like 2 to 3 or 4 main skills might be what they're going for. Again, this is just conjecture at this point, but this is something that Octavian said himself. So cool insight from him. Other feedback with the druid, unlike the huntress, mana was not an issue at all. I pretty much never had to use my mana flasks. Again, I'm not sure if that's just because of how the bear form works, or just maybe the Templar druid has more mana to begin with. I'm sure obviously it does more than the huntress. So I mean, it was nice kind of not having to worry about mana. The zone that I was in, I ended up going to, I think it's called like the Shrike Island. It's the one with all where the big bird is the boss. I did not enjoy that zone at all. It was long and narrow, and it was very long. I felt like I was just going on and on and on, kind of in a straight, like narrow line, trying to find the exit. There were parts where you would kind of walk into a cave, and like from the outside, you can't see what's in the cave. So you kind of go enter the cave, and all of a sudden, there's like 5 or 6 white mobs kind of pouncing on you, and it's all like in a tight cave, so there's not a lot of room. There wasn't a lot of room to like maneuver around and stuff. So I was dying quite a bit as well on the druid, kind of just walking into these caves, and it was to the point where it's like I would start kind of pre-firing the caves. I would draw my volcanoes and my thunderstorms before I even entered the cave to kind of prepare myself for whatever was waiting for me. So I do think it's cool, like thematically, to have the character kind of going in and out of terrain, and the having the scenery shift like that. But I think it almost felt like I was being booby trapped on multiple occasions. Overall, on this run, I was able to make it to the I think the boss is called the Scourge of the Skies, but I wasn't able to finish it, probably because I lost time playing the sorceress. But overall, again, the boss felt easier than the white mobs, and I think overall that's kind of my opinion of all the bosses that I experienced so far, was that I never died during any boss encounter. Only times I died were due to white mobs, or hasted blue mobs, or rares or stuff like that. Not to say that the bosses were easy, because they definitely weren't. I definitely had to think a lot as I was going through them. And again, maybe this is just because they give you 3 health flasks. But overall, yeah, that's kind of that was my experience with the bosses. After I finished the druid playthrough, I went right back in line, basically straight from the computer back to line, and I wanted to run it back again. So the third time back, I wasn't sure what I wanted to play. I wasn't sure if I kind of wanted to build on my druid experience. I also wanted to play the monk, but I ended up actually playing the druid again. I kind of felt like determined to overcome my initial obstacles in my first playthrough. So the third time I only had to wait about 30 minutes. It was the shortest wait. That was pretty cool. It really flew by, especially since you could just watch other people play. Going back to the druid, I basically kind of at this point I was pretty familiar with the combos, and it was just a matter of not dying to the mobs. And so unfortunately I was not that much more successful the second time around compared to the first time around. I think I was getting impatient, and so I was trying to just kind of skip all the white mobs and kind of beeline straight for the boss. That ended up getting me killed many times. Looking back at it, I think the times where I kind of sat and fought every white pack, I was actually more likely to survive than if I tried, running past them and just trying to, and I think part of the reason for that is, again, just navigating the narrow zone was not optimal for skipping packs. But I think overall, if I had probably spent more time fighting, I probably could have, learned a better combo or a better way to use my skill rotation or something like that. So the third time on my third playthrough total, my second time with the druid, I did drop a rare ring. It was called a pearl ring, and the implicit for that was increased cast speed. So I thought that was actually really cool. I had not seen that before. Obviously, that's not a default base in PoE1, so the cast speed implicit was really cool. And overall, it seemed like the ring was definitely an upgrade to one of the two rings that I had. Unfortunately, what happened was I equipped the ring, and one of the rings that I unequipped basically brought me down the stat threshold needed to use my weapon, and so I lost like half my abilities, and I very promptly died. But obviously, I basically just swapped out the other ring, so I was able to use everything that I was meant to use, and so that was kind of the best kind of loot drop that I had. Of the bosses that I had fought with the Huntress, I felt like the loot that dropped might have been, it was like pretty parallel to the loot or the gear that I already had. Definitely nothing crazy dropped. Again, that was just my experience. I have to say that the gear that they start you off with really isn't that bad at all. And so, there's like life and res on pretty much almost all the gear that you have, or, stats, or definitely like useful things that you would want in your PoE campaign. So upgrading my gear didn't really feel like a priority. But yeah, that rare pearl ring was pretty cool. Overall, I have to say that I am pretty excited. I'm very excited for PoE 2. I think at first I was definitely very hesitant to kind of accept the change that would be coming, because in general I just don't like change. But being able to kind of just go in and play that demo kind of really invigorated my kind of desire to play PoE 2. I mean, I think the biggest thing is that it's a fresh game, right? It's something that none of us have played before. There's going to be a lot of buzz around it, a lot of talk around the time that it comes out. So like, it's going to be a very exciting time to kind of be an ARPG fan once PoE 2 does come out. I feel pretty confident that the game is going to be successful. And I think the reason for that is the foundation of the game feels solid. Like, it feels good. Like, it didn't feel like there were any kind of key features that were missing. I mean, again, the graphics were great, but that's one thing I'm not a huge. I care more about kind of the gameplay, the mechanics, like how does the game kind of flow together. And again, this is obviously only early game, pre-beta campaign footage, but it felt like it just worked well. One thing I have to say, and again, this is kind of just my fault for being inexperienced with PoE 2, is that the gem screen was a bit confusing. I didn't really know what I was doing. On the druid, you start with 3 kind of conditional gems. There's like a cast cast on melee kill, cast on, I think, melee stun, and cast wall channeling, I think is what they give you. And I couldn't figure out how to slot that into my gear. Even if the like colors, lined up, it wouldn't sock it in. So um, again, that's probably just due to me being unfamiliar with the game. But obviously, I think that's something that over time, all of us should be able to pick up. That's not really a critique. That's just kind of the experience that I had. That being said, I mean, to kind of just reiterate my point for my excitement for PoE2, it feels good. We don't know how the end game is going to plan out, and that is a very important thing that we're just going to have to wait and see. But I feel pretty confident that they're going to have a lot of good things implemented into the game. And to be honest, I mean, if you judge PoE1 based on its campaign, it's not PoE1 campaign is not, in my opinion, the greatest experience. And I think a lot of people have that kind of similar sentiment. And so it's really hard to judge kind of how much fun the game is going to be after you beat the campaign. Obviously, right now it's impossible. But again, like fundamentally, the game feels like it's gonna flow well. It's gonna feel good to play. It's gonna feel rewarding to be running around and using various combos to navigate through packs. Fighting bosses is a great experience. There's over 100 bosses, and so I mean that's gonna be a blast, right? Just learning each and every boss. I'm a little worried that for every character that you make, you're gonna have to kind of kill every boss because there's gonna be some bonus loot or like bonus attributes. I think is what we saw in one of the demos. Killing 100 bosses on every character that you make doesn't sound the best, but again, we'll have to wait and see how they actually balance the rewards and incentives for fighting all the bosses. But on just a fun factor, it was a blast. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to future PoE2 content. But yeah, overall, that was my experience with Path of Exile 2 at PAX West. It was funny being in public and hearing people talk about Path of Exile, because I mean, in my experience, that's something that I've only ever talked about, in my Discord servers or stuff like that. And so hearing someone talk about alteration spamming out in the real world was just a really kind of funny experience. But again, overall, it was a great time. It was really kind of humbling being able to meet and chat with the GGG devs, employees, owners. Just they were all super down to earth, friendly, helpful people. It made me wish that I went more days. I think I definitely would have loved to try some of the other characters, and even just chat with the GGG employees more. But the one day was what it was. It was a lot of fun. I would love to do it again. As far as me, I mean, I'm a brand new channel, and so any support, feedback, comments you guys have would be super appreciated and helping me kind of start out my PoE2 content career. So yeah, with that being said, thanks so much for tuning in and listening to me rant. I know this video's quite long, but yeah, until next time, peace out.